Chapter 11. We are creating, Jolanta said, her chin set earnestly down, her eyes following Pascal as he crawled around her like a cat. In the recreational quarters aboard their airship, the Numinosity, Jolanta and Pascal were dancing together, ankle deep in a pool of thick white liquid that might have been milk. Sort of dancing. Sometimes they'd break from one another and move around the shallow pool with animal movements, like a pair of predators, stalking, always aware of each other's presence. They were both wearing very little. Their opulent airship was fitted with every luxury imaginable, and the pool was Jolanta's latest gift to Pascal. He'd bought her a small island on the Douarnenland archipelago for her last birthday, a little Eden where they could withdraw from the urgent chatter of their lives, and she was explaining how her gift extended his. Sinking to a squat, Jolanta let her knuckles fall into the liquid like a primate. As you'll recall, most of the island's flora and fauna are genetically modified. Well, now it will be truly bespoke. She splashed her face, then beat her chest with her fists. A gene artist I know records the data impressions we leave in this semi-organic compound. She clapped a hand into the white soup, which is fed into the algorithm that directs the mutations our plant and animal friends undergo. Jolanta kicked out in a low spiral so her toe skidded over the surface of the liquid, spraying Pascal white as he tucked himself into a ball and rolled backwards in response. They shot each other a glance, crouched, and readied themselves to pounce. How we move in here, how we interact and play together, determines what kind of life will populate our little paradise. Pascal patted the liquid inquisitively as Jolanta built herself up for a big move. She ran towards him. He gripped the small of her back and pulled her into him before swirling her around in a curtain of milky splashes. Pascal let her tumble out of his hold, then took her hand and pulled her back. Jolanta dropped to her knees and skidded through his open legs. Still skidding, she spun around and locked onto his gaze. "It's the dance of life," she hissed, deadly serious. "And we are the dancers." Later, the couple lay beside each other. They'd finished having sex and were lounging on their bed as Pascal dictated into his eyeline. He was having a break from poetry and was trying his hand at prose for a change. "Coiled and tangled, eyes accustomed to the dark, they proffered up their bodies, sweetly negotiating them until they, too, were attuned and well composed." He looked over at Jolanta, who was flicking through something on her eyeline. "She rested her head along his powerful shoulder and felt the grace of life course along his body. Something she also sensed in herself." He paused and considered where he might go next with this. "Just plain gifted, aren't you?" Jolanta commented, her mind elsewhere. Pascal started to say something but changed his mind and nodded instead. "Darling, could you stop recording?" Jolanta asked him, shutting her eyeline down. "We need to talk shop." He stopped the dictation, quietly, glad, as he was having trouble coming up with anything else. "This virus, the one in the north, ancient thawed-out deer plague? Transmitted to people, now a potential pandemic? more than just a potential. One of the largest cities in the Arctic Circle has reported an unprecedented decline in the birth rate over the last 10 months. Preliminary investigation shows the anomalous presence of a provirus in the DNA of infertile couples. Same virus? Yes. Didn't you say it was symptom-free? Nearly. There's no fever, no dramatic organ failure. It won't kill you. But no children. Right. And seeing as there are no other symptoms to speak of, the virus goes undetected for months. We don't know how far it's spread already. An infertility pandemic. Fascinating. What are you thinking? A 2-tier program. We already hold the majority of shares in the prominent clinics and secondary fertility services. We acquire whatever is left and make a killing with in vitro fertilization. Pascal sat up, his mind whirring. The Atlanta, 9 in all. The IVF sector is well established. But after an epidemic like this, it'll explode. We'll hike the prices, massive markup on all fertilization packages, and just think about the add-ons, the boost in genetic enhancements. I'll see your enhancements and raise you. Yolanta was incredibly pleased with herself. Oh? Yes. Let's say this virus really spreads. Let's say we give it a helping hand. Most pregnancies around the globe will then have to go through our clinics. And whilst the embryos are in our lab, we'll have opportunities. For example, we tier most products, yes? He murmured his agreement. And the consumer enters the market at the tier they can afford. In terms of human reproduction, we could say that an enhanced IQ, athletic physique, and extended longevity are top-tier services. Yes? She cuddled up to him and made patterns on his chest with a finger. But why should the bottom tier be a standard healthy baby? Are you with me? Pascal nodded slowly. I think so. If parents aren't willing to pay for the privilege, why should they expect access to a fully functional child? Why indeed? Yolanda, you're an inspiration. She tapped her eyeline and brought up a holographic game, a platform puzzle with a charismatic ball as the protagonist. She started flicking it from one place to another with little care or attention. I got the idea from these games. The economics behind them. They come free most of the time, right? I suppose. So there's no profit in initial sales, but the game platform is a loss leader. Once the consumer is hooked, they pay to unlock other features within it. Weapons, levels, characters. That's where the profit lies. But exactly how sophisticated the free platform is when it's given away is up to the developers. She closed the projection and rolled onto her side to face Pascal. Darling, what's the most precious commodity? She asked. Some would say money, some power. He blinked once or twice and looked up at the ceiling. But it was the lyric poet Robert Herrick who considered time itself to be of ultimate value. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Old time is still a-flying. No, she interrupted him. Herrick was wrong. It's consciousness. What's the use of money or power if you can't appreciate them? And time? A lump of rock is unimaginably old. But would you switch places with one? No, consciousness is the most precious commodity. And our IVF clinics are practically giving it away, Pascal tutted. Exactly. Jolanta narrowed her eyes as they looked at each other. This is not a sustainable business model.